How are
Hi,
you?
everybody. It's good to be with you.
You have been doing a tremendous amount of work on national security issues, on the Islamic Jihad, on Iran, on EMP, all of this. Just take a minute to establish the complexity, because we're going to unpack that complexity. The complexity, the average American, and we're like 25 days or so away from a midterm election. And here in Florida, we've got a battle going on, and national security is one of the issues they're arguing about. For the average voter, just establish the complexity of understanding the Islamic State, and then we'll deconstruct that through the course of our show, Claire.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, the Islamic State, newsflash, it actually is Islamic. And it also actually behaves and functions as a state. It's got its roots back in the 2000s when American troops were in Iraq, and other coalition members with us too, fighting against a guy, you might remember this name, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. He headed up a terror group called Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Well, thanks to General David Petraeus and our brave fighting forces, he was killed in 2006, and the AQI forces were defeated. A bunch of them fled up into Syria, along with whatever was left of Saddam Hussein's, top command structure. They found safe haven in Syria, and when the civil war in Syria broke out in 2011 against Bashar al-Assad, these guys were part of the opposition. They were part of the rebel forces. And they grew stronger in part because both Bashar al-Assad and his terror state sponsor, Iran, and Hezbollah that fights with them, kind of left hands off of these guys. They didn't go after them very much. So they grew, and they called themselves now Islamic State in Iraq and Al-Sham. That is the ISIS part. And the Al-Sham part is a reference to the old historic name for Greater Syria. It just means the southeastern littoral, the shore, of the Mediterranean Sea. That's what Al-Sham means. And it extends inland pretty much down into the beginnings, at least, of Mesopotamia. So ISIS starts to get strong. It's led by Iraqis, especially a scholar by the name of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is a graduate, and he holds a doctorate degree from a university in Baghdad in Islamic studies. This guy knows Islam and Islamic law, and he knows what he's doing in terms of following Islamic doctrine. So
all right, let's hold it
he
right
leads
there.
this
Clear.
group. It gets big and strong. And then finally this year, June 2014, it sweeps down out of Syria back into Iraq from where it came and takes over a lot of territory. Cities fall. The Iraqi army falls back before it. Divisions drop their uniforms, drop their guns, and flee. And by the way, all that great top-of-the-line U.S. American-made equipment like tanks and APCs and artillery and everything else falls into the hands of ISIS.
Unbelievable.
They take a new name now. Now they call themselves the Islamic State. Because why? They've erased the border. They erased the border drawn in the Sykes-Picot Agreement of the early 20th century by British and French colonial forces. The border between what used to be Iraq, used to be called Syria, doesn't exist anymore. It's been unified under the Islamic State. Al-Baghdadi declared a caliphate, called himself the emir. He took a new name. He calls himself Caliph Ibrahim now, and he controls a great deal of territory and is driving to take more. Many of the Sunnis that were in this area, who live in this area, flocked to his banner, the black flag of Islam, because they were so marginalized and felt completely left out of the government we left behind in Baghdad, led by Shiites, dominated by Shiites. And the Sunnis are not all fighting to stay free of the Islamic State, they're joining it in droves. Now what we're seeing is a whole bunch of other militias and formerly al-Qaeda groups and other jihadis from all over the world. As many as 70 or 80 countries are coming to join this entity. Wow. It's getting bigger and more powerful, but at the moment, the only territory that it actually has conquered or threatens are the territories of two Iranian puppet regimes, Baghdad and Damascus.
Wow. Not a bad immediate overview for the complexity of this situation.